Okay, let me demonstrate to you, more than anything I can think of, the best way to do it, the next step. Step number 4. Because it's really critical that you get this. All these steps kind of have to happen together, all right? And this could probably be the most important one. The one that if you were to do this alone and pay attention to the feedback would probably get you where you want to go. I have here in my pocket, I believe, a $50 bill. If this $50 bill were available, and it is, I'm going to show you the one secret that separates winners from losers more than anything else. Okay? So if this was available, who would want it?
Thank you.
All right. Now don't go away yet. Come back. Tell us your name.
Debbie.
What did Debbie do that no one else in the audience did? She got up and she took action. See, too many times we sit around and we wait and we hope and we dream and we affirm and we pray and we meditate and we do all that. And all that's important. It's part of the process. But at a certain point, the opportunity shows up. And if you don't act, you get to sit and not have $50. Okay? So let's give her a hand for coming up here and doing it. So step number 4 is what? Take action. Take action. One of my favorite quotes is by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. He said, "The heights by great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upward in the night." What does that mean? You got to work. You got to do some doing this. You can't just sit around and hope it'll happen. One of the steps, one of the actions you need to take is called asking. And many of us, see, we wrote a book, Mark and I wrote a book called Dare to Win. And it was a book of all these kind of things, and people went out and they read the book, and still a lot of people weren't successful. And we thought, what's the problem here? And as we began to analyze and interview people, we realized that one of the main things that was blocking most people was the fear of asking for what they wanted. They wouldn't go up and just say, "Can I borrow money? Will you support my dream? Will you volunteer for school? Will you lend me your car?" Whatever it is they need, they were so afraid of being rejected. And so we wrote a book called The Aladdin Factor, How to Ask for and Get Everything You Want. And we were doing all that research, we ran across a girl named Marquita Andrews. And Marquita Andrews was the living example of what we call ask, 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 ask. Because you're going to have to ask a lot of people. And Marquita, her mother, when she was a little girl, came up to her and said, "You know, Marquita, I have a dream. My dream is to travel around the world, but I also have a dream for you. I want you to graduate college. Problem is, I'm a waitress. I don't see how I can underwrite both dreams on a waitress's salary. But I'll make a deal with you. If you'll go to college and agree that after you graduate, you'll take 25% of your income for the first number of years and put that in savings to send me around the world, then I'll pay for your college education. But if you're not willing to do that, then I don't know if I want to pay for your college education." Well, what is she? She's like 7 or 9 at the time. She goes, "Sure, deal," you know. Well, later that year, she joins the Brownie Scouts. And the Brownies are part of the Girl Scouts, and they came out with their annual cookie drive. And they had a contest that year. Girl who sells most cookies wins trip for 2 around the world. Marquita says, "I'm getting out of this one easy." Right? So she starts selling cookies like you can't believe. Now, in her first year as a Brownie Scout, she sold 3,526 boxes of Girl Scout cookies. Someone just said, "No way." Most women who've sold Girl Scout cookies, if you sell 300 or 400 boxes, that is a big deal. 3,526. How'd she do it? Ask, 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 ask. She lived in New York, high population concentration, right? She would go into high-rise apartment buildings and condos, and as people would come down in the morning and back from work, she would just be there. "Did you buy your cookies yet? Did you buy your cookies yet? Well, you want to buy some cookies?" And if she bought one, they say, "Well, you want to buy 2? Don't you know people?" She would just ask, ask, ask. Then one day, she finds herself at 14 years old. She wrote a book called How to Sell More Cookies, Condos, Cadillacs, Computers, and Everything Else. And she was the keynote speaker at Radio City Music Hall to the $1 Million Roundtable of insurance salesmen, all people who'd sold over $1 million in commissions and all this stuff. And she's up there talking to 1,000 people. And at the end of her talk, she says, "I want you all to look under your seat. You'll find a 3x5 card. Take that out and write a number between 5 and 10 on the card." So everybody did. And she said, "That's how many boxes of Girl Scout cookies I want you to buy for me today as you leave here." That day, she sold 7,000 boxes of Girl Scout cookies. She's in the Guinness Book of World Records. Before she retired, she sold over 32,000 boxes. Isn't that astounding? Hasn't been beaten yet. Okay. But what does she do? Ask, 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 ask. Very powerful tool. Now, she had one final clause, a little phrase she says. SW, 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 SW. What does that mean? Some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting. So if you ask enough people, eventually someone's going to say yes. If I asked everyone in this room, do you have a red car? Eventually someone would say yes. It doesn't matter. If you ask enough people, you're going to get your dream met. Now we're going to come back in just a moment. And when we do, I'm going to teach you a word that's going to get you out of the problem of what happens when you ask for something and people say no. And this one word, if you knew this word and you learned it and you used it, can actually get you anything you want in life. So stay tuned, come on back, and we'll show you how to make your dreams come true. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Now, I said before the break I'd teach you one word, how to deal with no when you get a no from somebody. And again, I'd like you to write this down, write it in your brain if you don't have anything to write it with on paper and so forth. And here's the word. It's very simple. When someone says no to you, what I want you to say to yourself real loud inside your head is the word next. Let's just practice that. So if I say no, what are you going to say? Next. Absolutely. One more time. No. Next. Now, what does that mean? Ask somebody else. Absolutely. How many people live on the planet? 5 billion people. Someone wants to do what you want to do. Someone wants to get involved in your dreams. Someone wants to support you. You might have to ask a lot of people. Remember, ask, 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 ask. So when they say no, you say next. And here's another clue most people don't realize. If you ask somebody and they say no, does that mean you can never come back and ask them again? No. Little kids are so good at it. Mommy, can I go to the store with you? No. Oh, come on, Mom, please let me go to the store with you. They go away. Mom, you are going to let me go to the store with you. And they wear you down, you know. So that's another thing you can, next time can be, right? So don't let no stop you. No just means get creative, get going. Now, what stops people from asking? What stops people from doing? It's something called fear. We're all afraid. We're afraid we're going to look stupid. We're afraid we're going to get rejected. I love this person who did the acronym FEAR, stands for fantasized experiences appearing real, or false evidence appearing real. Because when you close your eyes and you fantasize something like you're not going to be able to pay your bills, or they're going to take your house, or you're going to flunk out of school, then your body reacts like it's real. I was flying to Orlando in a plane not too long ago, and this woman was sitting next to me, and as we took off, she started like lifting herself out of the seat. I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm making myself lighter so the plane will take off." Now, I knew we'd had a failure in American physics education, right? And I also noticed her knuckles were all white, and I said, "Are you a little afraid?" She says, "Yeah, I guess I am." I said, "Well, we're headed Orlando. I guess that's where I'm going. You're going?" She says, "Yeah." I said, "Where are you going down there?" So I'm going to Disney World to visit my children. They're going to be there, and my grandchildren. I said, "Well, close your eyes for a second. Indulge me. I'm a psychologist." She said, "Okay." So she closed her eyes. I said, "What are you imagining right now?" She said, "Well, I see the plane blowing up in a fireball at the end of the runway." I said, "Well, no wonder you're scared. You know, this would make anyone crazy." And so then I had her close her eyes and imagine being at Disney World. And I said, "What's your favorite attraction?" She said, "It's a small world." So I said, "Imagine you're in the little thing and you're going through It's a Small World and all the little people are dancing and singing." I actually started going, "It's a small world anyway." Da, da, da. And all of a sudden she relaxed, her breathing deepened. And this was what was so powerful. Nothing outside of her had changed. We're on the same plane going down the same runway. But what she changed was her response. She started visualizing a positive outcome rather than a negative outcome. And her physiology reacted. Same thing we've been talking about all along. Now let's look at this fear. The biggest fear I think that stops most people from asking is the fear of what? Rejection. So let's say that I ask, what's your name? I go over to Susan, I say, Susan, would you have dinner with me tonight? And let's say she says no. I go, oh. Everyone goes, oh, Jack's been rejected. It's so sad. But let's look at it objectively. Did I have anyone to eat dinner with before I asked her?
No.
Did I have anyone to eat dinner with after I asked her? No. Did my life really get worse?
No.
Stayed the same, right? If I apply to Harvard and don't get in, wasn't in Harvard before I applied, I'm not in Harvard after I applied. And most of you have spent your whole life not going to Harvard and survived just fine, right? So it's not a big deal. I worked for an optical company that makes lenses. Half the lenses in your glasses, they have 50% of the market, so half of you are wearing them. And I was the first guy that ever brought in as an outside speaker for their sales meetings. And I got there early in the day, and I went out, and there were some guys golfing and stuff. And I went up to people, and I said, do you know who the top 2 or 3 performers in the company are? And they'd all go, oh, yeah, it's Bob and Mary and Joe. And I said, well, great. Well, that night I went into the group, it was about 300 people, and I said, do you all know who the top 3 performers in the company are? And everyone said, oh, yeah, it's Bob, Mary, and Joe. I said, so you all know who's like selling many, many, many millions of dollars more than you are? And they went, oh, yeah. I said, now, by show of hands, how many of you have ever gone up to them and asked them to show you what they do to sell so much? You know, not one hand went up in that room of 300 people? Isn't it interesting? They knew who had the information, but they wouldn't ask them. I said, well, why don't you ask? Well, they might not tell me. I say, well, you already don't know. So if they don't tell you, you still don't know. How'd it get so bad? You know, it's not so bad. But they were so afraid that they might say, oh, you're stupid, I don't want to share with you. And what I found, and I think most of you have probably found too if you test it out, most people are willing to share what they know. They like to teach. They like to share. They like to be a mentor. Not everyone will. But if they say no, what are you going to say? Yeah. Next. There's lots of top performers out there you can go to. We've got to get over this fear of rejection. Don't let it stop you. It's not a big deal. Just keep asking the questions. Ask, ask, ask. Say next. Move on. Nothing happens if you're rejected. Fear of rejection. Fear of failure. Fear of looking stupid. Fear, 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 fear stopping us. Let's look at how to overcome any fear. There's a couple different techniques, but let's look at what I think is probably one of the most powerful ones. How many of you have seen the book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway? Remember that? Susan Jeffers wrote this book. Well, think about that. Feel the fear and do it anyway. I'm going to do a little demonstration with you here to show you how this works. I'm going to take this chair here. I'm going to pretend this is a diving board. And I'm going to stand up on the end of the diving board. How many of you know how to dive off a diving board? Can you remember when you had to learn to do that? You're standing on the end of the board. So here I am. I'm on the end of the board. There's my dad down in the water. He says, come on, jump. And I'm, Dad, he says, it's only 2 feet to the water. I says, yeah, but it's another 9 to the bottom of the pool. And it's 5 from the feet to the head here, you know, and it's a long way down. He says, come on, just jump. I'm scared. Can you relate to that? How many of you at that point said, you know, Dad, I think I'm going to get off the board, go see a child psychologist, going to deal with my fear of jumping into liquids from high places, and when I handle that, I'll come back and jump in. Did any of you do that? No, what did you do? You felt the fear, and you jumped anyway, right? And this is really the principle that works for anything in life. You're going to feel fear. It's going to show up. So what? Most people let fear stop them. They say, well, obviously, then I shouldn't do this thing. I'm going to say to you, feel the fear, and pretend it's like a 2-year-old. Take the 2-year-old with you. You know, it doesn't want to go certain places, first day of school. So what? Take it. You're the adult. Treat your fear like a little child. But don't let it run you. You're bigger than that. You're bigger than that. The mastery comes from what? Handling the fear. Now, I had a teacher, very profound spiritual teacher, teach me once how to take this and even make it deeper. So here's what I'm going to teach you too. I want you to take your fingers and join your 2 forefingers together like this. Everyone do that? Okay. And what I want you to do is repeat after me. Everyone ready? Okay. Goes like this. A little chant. Goes like this. Oh, everybody. Oh, what the heck? Go for it anyway. Let's do that together one more time. Oh, what the heck? Go for it anyway. Very good. Let's see. If you can remember that when you're scared, oh, what the heck, go for it anyway. then you'll take that action. It won't always be the perfect action, but if you get into action, something's going to happen.